Hello, and welcome, as always, to our brand new VAWMA stream. I, of course, am your humble host, Kat. You may know me from my transformational life coaching business as Live with Advantage. And I, as always, am joined by my super cool co-host, James Harris. Um,
Hello.
yeah, I want to say thank you for joining us today for our second episode of How to Build a Co-op. We started last week with our premiere episode that was kind of a mix between a a dress rehearsal, if you will. We had some technical issues, we had some good dialogue. And this week we are actually going to start off with a review of how we got this idea going. So before we get to there, I'm going to hand it off to Mr. James. Feel free to introduce yourself and then start segueing into how this brainchild of yours became a 4 week event through the month of November.
Okay, certainly. My name is James. Hello, and welcome to everybody who's watching. We're broadcasting live this morning from the budding rural metropolis of Owen Sound, located in the sunny and snowy parts of northern and southwestern Ontario. So VAWMA, the Voluntary Association for Work and Mutual Aid, is kind of the dream child and the current incarnation of the journey that I've been on in order to get to a place where I am basically able to make a life worth living, if that makes any sense. It started back in the day when I was realizing that all the jobs that I've been working as an employee really sucked, and not that the work itself was bad, but that the stress and the strain of being what I've now come to realize and frame as being a wage slave, the kind of strain that puts on the psyche, and I was just very unhappy at it, and I think that story is not unique, and so that is kind of the foundational uh, area where I started from. I still had my faith at the time, oddly enough. Before that, up until that point in my life, I guess my life's ambition had been to um, be a pastor or a missionary or something. I know, crazy, right? And it's
No, I actually find that very respectful. Actually, I have a
uh,
couple of friends who are sisters. Um,
hmm,
in convents, one in the States and one
hmm.
in Northern Ontario, and I think that is an amazing passion, and I applaud you actually for having that drive.
It was one that was really driven by a desire to create community and a healthy community. Um, Probably accented by the fact that so many of the religious communities I grew up in were probably fundamentally unhealthy. We'll go back into that at some other point in time, but suffice to say, uh, the the drive to create a community has definitely been intrinsic to a part of who I am for a very long time. And when I started questioning, my role in society, my place in what was happening, what was going on, I discovered that um, uh, I just found myself going down all of these different like rabbit holes of discovering things, and each new revelation would sort of like open up a new door to like a new person, and eventually I found myself, going from I don't know, listening to the CBC as my primary source for information about the world, or
Mm.
the radio overnights, which were great, where they get. If you're awake at 3 o'clock in the morning, you can listen to Radio South Africa. Why? I don't know, but it was there, and it got you a very interesting perspective of the world. You listen to Radio ABC Australia, you listen to Radio Deutsche Welle, get a European uh, understanding of what's going on in the world. And so I went from there to jumping onto YouTube as a primary source for information. And I think I dropped into like TYT sometime in like 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. And also around the same time, I found the Majority Report, which brought me to Michael Brooks, who introduced me to Richard Wolff. And then through the algorithm of watching all these guys, I found a lecture of Richard Wolff's called Understanding Marxism. And I thought, you know what? I grew up during the Cold War. I remember when Chernobyl happened. I remember when the Soviet Union collapsed. And I remember the big celebration with Clinton and how, or I guess Bush it was, you know, that the Soviet Union formally collapsed. And it was celebrated, like we won. It was like won what? I don't know. you know,
We don't
and
know what it is, but we won.
yeah, exactly. And so all I know is that Marxism is supposedly, the boogeyman of the devil. It was something I was taught to fear, and I really don't understand it. So maybe watching a lecture of somebody who has taken the time to read the stuff, disseminate the information in a cohesive and a manner that makes sense to me at least. I thought, sure, why not? I'll give this a try, and that really introduced me to the concept of worker-owned cooperatives. So which was interesting because at the time I had been dreaming about starting a business. I talked to you about it before, called Codename Flagons and Dragons, and it was going to be
What a
my
very odd code name.
yeah, right. It's like I mean. It may have ended up being something else at the end, being a Flagons and Dragons. If is a lot of letters, and you're paying for a lot of letters, so flag and drag might
Ooh.
might be fun too. We'd attract a very
We
flamboyant
would.
crowd, I'm
We
sure. It
might
would
have
be
to
a lot of fun.
workshop it, but we'll
Yeah.
see.
um, but might not fly necessarily in rural Ontario. You never know. Because, and this is actually one of the things that inspires me. In 2019, I want to say we had, before COVID-19 happened, ONSAT had its very first gay pride parade, and thousands of people showed up.
Yeah.
Thousands. And
Yeah.
you would never have expected it in the country that elected what's his name? The guy who told the people with the job to go back to their own countries and not be Canadian anymore.
Oh,
Like
John
we
Cherry.
elected. Yeah, right. No, it was our
Yeah.
former MP before current guy. I can't remember his name, but and I'm glad he's gone. Because like he was an embarrassment. And but in the territory that elected that man to represent us, we had thousands of people show up to say, "Yeah, your career, you're here, and I'm here for it." And I'm like, these are the kind of people that are my kind of people. These are the kind
Hmm.
of people that I want to do business with, and that I think would want to do business with me. Um, and so that gave me hope that there might be a demographic base for a progressively minded business in the area. So that eventually brought me into conversations with you, because like that was 2019. COVID happened. All my best laid plans went to poofed up in smoke,
Hmm.
and we find ourselves. Um, what that did though was create like a filter. Maybe even a crucible could be a good analogy here as well, where it's like it just kept boiling and refining and getting, the trimming the bits off that are the stiff, that
Hmm.
aren't useful to the idea. So what started as like an individual uh, quasi cooperative business idea, which then turned into the 10-100 idea, which we went into a little bit last week, it then turned and morphed into the Voluntary Association for Work and Mutual Aid, and so that idea for the Voluntary Association for Work and Mutual Aid turned into conversations on our Dungeons and Dragons group, right? Which then turned
Yeah.
into a conversation between you and I, where you encouraged me to basically bring everything together into a cohesive vision, and to not let the not let perfect be the enemy of good enough. And we've got an idea which is good enough to start throwing into the community, and start getting feedback from people, and start getting interplay and connectivity with the people that are going to be a part of this, if it's ever going to succeed in the first place. And yeah,
Yeah, and I
so
think that's a perfect segue into
hmm,
asking you the 4-week event during the month of
okay,
November. We hosted um, the IRL VAWMA events, and they were hosted down at the hub. And that's where we broke down each week into a different chunk to explain to the community what we were doing, how we were doing it, and how we planned on doing it. So I want to ask you about week one. The guest speaker that we had was John Mustakis. He's based in BC. But
mhm.
how did you come across his material, and why did you choose him to become one of our guest speakers?
Right. So I was first introduced to John Rostakis through a gift of a book that someone gave to me. They are a bibliophile, and consequently, this particular person spends a lot of time in secondhand bookshops, perusing and looking for interesting finds in order to expand their horizons, and help them become a better version of themselves. And I commend that. I applaud that. Um, uh, and they happened to hear that I had. This was around the time when I had just discovered Richard Wolff and the Understanding Marxism lecture. I had listened to that particular lecture about a dozen times by that point in time, uh, at least, and just digesting and internalizing these ideas of like democracy in the workplace,
Mm,
how that translates to individual freedom for myself when I am in control of how much time I work, when and and where, and I have a say in the how, and I get a share in the what. I love all those concepts. It appeals to me as a human being with intrinsic self interests, while at the same time I have a desire for the health and well-being of my community, and understanding that everybody else has their intrinsic self-interest as well. Cool. Well, let's create the most ethical, most well-balanced system to make sure everybody has the best access to pursue
mm,
their interests. So that was the inspiration there. Which, so my friend hears me talking about these things all the time, says, "Here, you might like this book." Hands me this book, and it's called "Humanizing the Economy: Cooperatives in the Age of Capital." And
mm,
very intriguing book title. And it's just a series of starts off with like the basic overview of what is a cooperative, okay, and now historically let's go through a whole series of different examples of how the cooperation, humans working together,
mm,
can do things in a way that is not only ethical but is actually quite productive. And I go into some of the science, the data that we've been able to accumulate, the fact that this is not starting in out of nowhere. This is not like some highfalutin idea, theory, as it were. We have examples. We have the Rochdale community of equitable pioneers or something like that. I forget exactly what they called themselves, but they came together in 1844 to create the first I can't remember if it was a worker cooperative or a consumer cooperative. I think it was a consumer cooperative,
Yeah.
and if I recall correctly, which is still like a valid form of cooperation where the people own um, the community that is utilizing and using the services of their store, get to direct what happens with the surplus that store generates. And they did. They created, if I recall correctly, they created all sorts of education programs, housing programs. They created a form of looking after the elderly at a top point in time, like pre-Victorian England, or
That's awesome.
1844. Yeah, no, it would have been Victorian. But it's like the point of the matter is this is the age of like mill dam factories and like
Yeah.
textile plants and like children, having like limbs cut off, while they're like in the middle of these machines.
Mm-hmm.
It's craziness. And these are the people that said, okay, we're going to come together and create something that is good. So I was introduced all this stuff through John Rosakis. I learned about the Rochdale Pioneers through him. I learned about Canada's own history of patron-owned, which is a kind of consumer-owned cooperative for old age homes, long-term care.
Oh.
Where the people who are receiving care, the elderly, are also the part owners in there. That's something that happens a little bit in Canada. There's some really good examples of that, I believe, in Spain, maybe Italy. And, so when the time comes around for us to launch into the very first week of our gathering, our first entrance into the public domain, if you will, as
Yeah.
VAWMA, as the Voluntary Association for Working Mutual Aid. I was sitting there chatting with you, thinking about it'd be really nice to have people who know what they're talking about when it comes to cooperatives, because in so many ways I am a fanboy. I am somebody who, full disclosure, is neuroatypical. I'm on the autism spectrum, and as a consequence I get these special interests, and cooperatives have become one of my special interests. But it's still very much at that sort of like train hobby enthusiast, sort of. I've got a bunch of model trains, I've got a bunch of model co-ops in the back
Right.
of my room or in the back of my mind.
Indeed.
And I would love to transition that from a special interest fanaticism sort of thing to something in real life, because the consequences of having a workplace that I'm a part owner in, and that I get to have a say in how it works and how it unfolds and how it is.
Yeah.
That super appeals to me on so many different levels. But also having a place that, if it does well, if I work really hard and I make the company like thousands of dollars, I'm going to participate in sharing part of the thousands of dollars that I helped to generate, in addition to the wages that I get, for doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that this is our company, we get to decide what wages we pay ourselves. And so, anyway, back to John Rosakis. He was foundational in creating a lot of the what if we did it this way, or could we do it this way, or could we
Ah.
take these ideas, or what could I take what they did in Emilia Romagna, and could I take what they did over here in Mondragon, Spain, or
Yeah.
can we take a little bit from what they're doing in Calcutta, or what they're, or the not Calcutta, like there's huge cooperative movements in Kerala,
Mm-hmm.
India. Uh, like that I'm just learning about. There's the S group in Finland that we learned about 2 weeks or so ago there, and so I had reached out to John Rosakis once before in the past, just to become Facebook friends, because every once in a while I got on these like nice little emotional highs or something, and I feel like I could take on the world, I get into my mind, yeah, why wouldn't John Restakis want to be friends with me? I want to be friends with him,
Absolutely.
you know. So
Hello,
I
famous
had
person,
reached
be
out,
my friend.
right? Why not?
Yeah.
And I get a distant sort of like quasi parasocial friendship with an author who feels very passionately about a subject that I too am feeling very passionately about,
Yeah.
and he gets someone to be excited over his work, which, let's face it, everybody wants that to some degree or another.
Right.
Um, and I hope to pay him the best compliment possible, which is to take the work that he's produced and let it be turned into something that in turn produces more of what he's been casting vision for in his book. Um, and I can think of no higher compliment to pay than other than to take, someone's book and work of their life's blood, of their passion, and turn it into something that is like bums and seats,
Right.
paying taxes to the Canadian government,
Yeah.
and helping people pay their mortgage and
Yep.
helping kids go to school and really helping um, society, possibly even get to a point where things can change. Because, like, and this is just a complete aside, one of the positive benefits of the VAWMA idea is that if it grows large enough, then we become a sort of default voting bloc.
Hmm.
People with a common interest. That if we can get the political class, the politicians, to basically want to play ball with us, because if we succeed, that means more jobs in the community, which means more tax revenue, which means all the fun things. Whereas if we don't succeed, it's like losing a factory. No politician wants to lose a factory. Under their watch,
Right.
that's like political suicide. So if we can get to the point where we can become a significant voting bloc, we can influence uh, elections. And that is one of my hopes, that we can affect municipal elections, we can affect provincial elections, and even federal elections. Which is partly why, when envisioning what we do with VAWMA, is built along the lines of franchises or VAWMA chapters being built along the lines of federal ridings, because usually federal ridings encompass provincial ridings, and provincial ridings, are just natural demographic blocks that are clumped together. Uh, Approximately, roughly the same size, we give or take, a couple thousand or 10,000, depending on where you are in the province, and anyway, but that's all aside. John Rostakis.
Well, and actually,
Wait.
I was just gonna
Mm-hmm.
say, I had actually put a pin in something you had mentioned earlier
Mm-hmm.
when we were talking about the Pride Parade, and how we had this amazing turnout for a Pride Parade in a place that voted in a hard ass conservative. Um,
Mm,
that's one thing that I think would blend really well with the ridings and voter turnout versus voter apathy and how
exactly.
your voice matters. I would love to dig into that next week if we can put a pin in that thought and
Sounds
unpack
good.
that a little bit more next week. Um,
Done.
so as far as week one goes, what was your topic of conversation to open the door? What was your topic of, okay, so this is week one. We've asked everybody
Mm-hmm.
to come to the hub. We have hyped up this amazing event.
Yeah, so we went.
How did you decide what week one was going to be based on?
So the reason why we went with week one is because I realized that the idea for VAWMA is huge, and to be able to do it all in one night was going to be impossible. So I took VAWMA, the idea behind VAWMA, broke it down to its four component parts of mutual aid, and as well as a network of worker-owned cooperatives, that work together to bring the surplus together. Anyway, losing my thing. I was trying to remember my little catchphrase I had during November, but I can't. But it was
People are our bottom line.
that is it,
Yeah.
and really is that's going to be what's driving us. Um, so we had to start somewhere. So mutual aid is the foundation for where we want to go because it's lateral, it's community building. It's not about us creating a charity that disseminates to the poors. It's about us people like human beings coming together, bringing what they can where they can, offering what they can to help out each other, and in doing so, creating that community bond that says, you know what, we're here to make sure that none of us drowned, that all of us are looked after, that everybody, goes to bed with food in their stomach, shoes on, goes to school with shoes on their feet, that sort of thing. And we like to pride ourselves in our society that we're kind of like above, poverty and stuff like that until you meet friends that, aren't. And
Yeah.
it's tough out there. So we had to start somewhere, and with John's great wealth of knowledge about all the different communities that are out there, and knowing that the whole point of the cooperative impulse to do business is to do it in a way that benefits the most. It's right there in the title, cooperation. And I could think of a few people better to speak to the idea of mutual aid and lateral connection, of building each other up with the premise, today me, tomorrow you, or you know, however it is, today you, tomorrow me, however it works. It's building up that culture of yeah, we will look out for each other, and we will build that expectation that I can actually trust my neighbor to make sure I won't starve to death, which is so dystopian. Like the point in time that we're living in Ontario right at the moment, where homelessness is so rampant because we've turned housing into a commodity.
Yeah.
So and then we have all these corporations buying up houses, like single family houses and stuff, in order to turn them into income properties. It's Something's got to change, and I think part of that change can be something that we're trying to do with VAWMA. Because one of the eventual things that we can do, if we ever get to a point where we're making a profit, is we can reinvest that money into community-owned cooperative housing,
Yeah.
um, where we become the mortgage holder, or that underwrites cooperative housing movements, and then
Hmm.
we just get everybody who signs on to that to basically cover the mortgage, so we get out. It's we got plans. We'll talk about that. Put a pin in that one too, right?
Absolutely.
Things we can do
That's
when
it.
we make money,
The future.
right?
Yeah.
And
Um.
we really, I just want to touch real
Yeah.
quickly that John gave us a lot of really good things to walk away from. We've got what do we got here? Um, Learning networks, like creating communities, creating networks of people that know what they're talking about, getting them being able to connect to the right people at the right time, while at the same time decentralizing things. So not having like a top-heavy authoritarian style megacorp, dictating to all the different cooperatives how they're going to do things. The people on the ground floor understand their job the best. They know their customers. They know what's going to work. It's better to leave it in their hands as to how they get the job done. And we once we make money, then at that point we can all together decide how we're going to disseminate that. But yeah, so it was really good. Huge thanks to John Rastakis for coming out.
Yes.
It laid the foundation for what came for the rest of the thing there. Super sorry, we lost so much. Like we lost the live stream. It's gone. We have the video, thank God. We have some stuff, but we lost the Q&A. We had so many technical difficulties. But you know what? That's how you can tell that this is a true leftist progressive thing. There is by all of our technical difficulties. We got heart and
I think it
technical
also
difficulties.
shows to our transparency that, you know
Mm,
what, we don't know what we're doing. We are learning. And
yeah,
the whole experience of this, taking everybody with us on this journey of, yeah, we don't know what we're doing, but we're going to show the world that we're trying to figure it out, and come on the ride with us. Come for the laughs, come for the lulls, come for the, oh, that was bad, but also come with us for the success,
yeah,
right?
exactly, exactly.
So,
And
um, so yeah, that kind of leads me. So week one was really based on the mutual aid part of things.
mhm.
Me today, you tomorrow, or you today, me tomorrow, however you want to phrase that. Uh, what was the cornerstone for week two? And the guest speaker was, I feel like it was another John, and I can't remember his name for the life of me. I apologize.
Yes, John McNamara, and
McNamara.
he was a referral. I had originally reached out to the sociocracy. Shoot, what is their organization called? Oh, I have such a sieve for a memory. I'm afraid.
That's okay. When we think of
But
it, we can always add it to the description of the video, but
sociocracy for all. That's their name.
perfect.
Sociocracy for all. And maybe later on, if my brain doesn't leak it, and I remember, we can put a link to their
Yeah,
organization in the doodly doo.
absolutely.
I had reached out to them because as building on the foundation of mutual aid, which is a foundation of community relationship, lateral relationship, not hierarchical. From there, once we've addressed and made sure that everybody's okay, nobody's in crisis, the next thing that we need to do is figure out, okay, how do we emancipate ourselves from being wage slaves? You know, for most of us, the only answer, the only solution to that is to become entrepreneurs, start our own business, be our own boss, right? Which, nothing wrong with that. If you're the sole proprietor and you're a business of one, sure, why not? Go for it. You do you, boo. And if you're my friend, I'll do everything I can to help support you in your business. Yeah.
Hmm.
If you're a stranger, I may or may not. I don't know. Who are you? And But if you are an individual like myself who is not necessarily administratively minded, not necessarily business minded, I can learn. Yeah, I can do what I can. Um, but I should definitely not do this alone. I suffer in a lot of ways from executive dysfunction. And there's ADHD and stuff lends itself into there. Like again, I said I'm one of these neuro A types, which is fun. I'm learning to accept that about me and not punish myself for not being typical in areas when I'm not typical. That's cool. Um, so to dial it back and to make it more about VAWMA. Um, when we're going from addressing our mutual aid needs, making sure nobody's in crisis, we then have to address how do we get to a point where we're emancipated from jobs that make us wage slaves. Again, you could be the entrepreneur, or you can go into business with other people, and you can reap the benefits of the having a larger corporation, a larger reach, a
Right.
larger business, reaching more demographics, being able to produce more just by virtue of the fact that many hands make light work. So from there, the question is, When we get to that point, how are we going to conduct ourselves in a way that makes sure that everybody that's involved has a connection to what's happening, has a say in what's happening? If I'm going to follow a policy, I want to at least have a say in that policy. Maybe not veto rights, maybe veto rights. I don't know. It depends on the situation. There's
Yeah.
some things I want to be able to say, no, this is a hard line. I'm out if we do it this way.
Mm-hmm.
And in situations like that, that would be my preference, to not have to walk away. So how do we navigate stuff like that? Well, through my love of cooperatives, my special interests, I find myself in all these little, community things, community events that different cooperatives put on throughout the pandemic. So it was during the time when everything was online and everything was digital, which is great because I'm
Yeah.
poor and stuck in the northern half of southwestern Ontario, and very out of the way. There aren't a whole lot of cooperative conferences happening in Owen Sound, and yet, and so the digital conferences got me onto. I think I attended the one in Co-op Cincinnati, Co-op Cincy,
Okay.
which is part of the One Worker, One Vote network. I believe they're connected to that. So,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a man who's connected with that. His name escapes me, but he's been on the All Things Co-op podcast a number of times. He used to be the North American rep for the Mondragon Corporation in the US of A. So anything Mondragon related, you just talk to him and he'll say, "Yeah," sort of thing. He's the dude. Um, and um, that all got me to a podcast, or not a podcast. It was an online discussion thing where people were talking about sociocracy in co-ops, and there was a dozen or so people that were connected to it, most of whom were a part of established cooperatives. And one of the things that I picked up, I didn't fully understand what they were talking about at the time when they were talking about sociocracy. Yeah, it was appealing to me, but one of the things that really stood out to me was everybody who A had been a part of an established co-op that did not use sociocracy in the beginning, but B transitioned to sociocracy, couldn't rave enough about how much they had wished they had been using sociocracy right from the beginning. I took
Oh,
notes on
okay.
that. And that's one of these common themes, recurring themes, because sociocracy is not inherent to cooperatives. A lot of people use like Robertson's rules in order to get business done. The traditional 50% plus one vote carries a motion, and
Yeah.
whether or not you might end up with 49% of your workforce that are really pissed with the fact that 50 plus one, you know, took it a certain way, and
Mm-hmm.
they don't feel heard and it leaves bad blood. Whereas within sociocracy, the process is everybody has a say. Um, Everybody gets a moment to have their input, and if you have a red flag, you get to throw it down. You get to say, "Hey, I have a red flag. I do not
Mm-hmm.
consent to this." And when that happens, everybody says, "Okay, how do we compromise? How do we resolve this? How do we get past this impasse?" And it's one of the key things that they talk about in sociocracy is good enough for now, safe enough to try, right?
Good enough to stay
And I
scared.
right, and it really is something that I'm like, you know what, that's a good philosophy.
Yeah.
So, at any rate, when we were setting this all up in August, for November, and I started reaching out to the Sociocracy for All Society and asking them
Mm-hmm.
if there anybody in their group that could speak on sociocracy within cooperatives, and they volunteered. I can't remember. There was a whole bunch of them that we had at one point. I think we had as many as potentially three that may have been a part of the conversation,
Oh, wow.
which ended up boiling down to just John,
Okay.
which is fine because
So,
John, as we found out, he's a part-time professor at the University of St. Mary's out in I believe
yes.
it's in the East Coast, where they have
Yes.
a courses on cooperatives, which, maybe one of these days, if and when one of our cooperative projects gets off the ground, we can sponsor, some of our key people to go take these courses to learn how to be more effective, how to, where we can get better tax breaks, how we
I
can
wonder if those
organize
courses
ourselves more
might not
effectively.
be offered online by now with the hybrid learning
I,
model.
yeah, I think it's like postgraduate level stuff though. So it's like somebody with like me who's like that barely even has high school would have to like show that I'm actually have a cooperative that I'm managing or something before I would
But you know
qualify
John
for the management.
McNamara, he's the professor.
He might let me in, but then we go to see problem number two. I'm Pope.
Yes. Friend discount? I don't, doesn't matter.
Well,
Um,
and but if we get one of our cooperatives up and off the ground, we can
yes.
use it to then create bursaries and stuff. Anyway, but that's long term goals. So John McNamara ends up getting assigned to us, however it works,
Yeah.
and we do the back and forth. And I love the conversation that him and I are having.
Yeah.
It is. Uh, I in preparation for today, I basically went and re-listened to all of the things that we did, and just the wealth of information and knowledge that he
Right?
brings, and the tools that he gave. I don't know if you saw them in the Discord that I posted, but uh, like there are these cheat sheets that
Yes.
basically tell you how to do it. And dynamic governance summary, the content, consent-based decision making. I'm a huge fan of consent. I would love to create businesses around the concept of a happy yes.
Yeah.
And I would. Wouldn't it be fascinating if our whole approach to work and life and like doing what we need to do in order to survive, to be participate in society? What if our approach to work was, I don't want to go to work unless it's a happy yes, it's a fuck yeah, right? Um,
I mean,
uh,
I as much as I want to say yes, that is the dream, that is the drive. There's a part of me, and I think we'll start this conversation on another day, but that
hmm.
seems very Ayn Rand.
It could be. And I wouldn't be surprised because, let's face it, I grew up, we all did, in an Ayn Randian society under Reagan. Like, neoliberalism, is basically, let's take objectivism and apply it to government. Let's, make it all about the individual. Let's, let big business, run away. Let's, whatever. Our entire society has been based on this, objectivist individualism. And you know what? If that's the language I've inherited just by virtue of being in the society, it's going to be no different from everybody else
It's
in the
true.
Great Bruce. And if we
It's
can
true.
get to a point where we are doing the cooperative stuff by using bad language, I'll do
I
it.
think again, I think that's going to be a really interesting conversation that you and I get to have. And again, we'll do it another week and we'll put the
Yeah.
proper, hot take spoiler alerts and tag it with, these are adults using adult language because I'm not saying we're going to be in disagreeable nature. I think
Oh no.
this is where you and I are going to be able to see the difference of the mindsets that can still achieve the same goal,
Sure.
if you know what I mean.
I think
But
so.
again, I digress. So getting back to John McNamara
Hmm.
and sociocracy, I learned a lot from him based
Hmm.
on the whole the starting spots and using sociocracy from the very beginning and how to deal with those problem co-facilitators,
Hmm.
if that's the proper term. We had asked it like, okay, so you have your board of directors, and what happens if your four board of directors, one of them is just being a stubborn ass, what do
Yeah.
you do? How do you deal with them? And he, as much, and correct me if I'm wrong, as much as he was touting the sociocracy and, votes and, one person equals one vote, it's not a 50 plus one. If one person is standing in the way of good, you still have that designated leader that says GTFO.
Yeah, and it gets to the point where, because it is consensus based,
Hmm.
and if you have, and again, I'm not 100% certain of how it all works, but if the key that I recall, and I'm just pulling a
Yeah.
core memories now, the key that I recall was that it has to be justifiable. It can't just be, no, I
Yes.
don't like it. It has to be reasonable, articulate, and it has to be, it has to be data driven,
That's
right?
right.
And if it's just I don't like it, well, that's maybe not good enough for
I
the
don't like
threshold of a
pepperoni
veto.
on my pizza, but guess what?
Well, I mean, then we go around and we say, okay, well, then we order three pizzas, one of which will be vegetarian, one of which will be cheese, one of which will be pepperoni.
Right.
Or whatever. Show of hands. Who,
Yeah.
yeah, we figure it out,
Or
and
if I'm
and
the only
that's the beauty
person,
of
you know what? I
sociocracy.
just pick it off. Like, come on.
But if you're that person that's like, I don't like pepperoni, and I don't think, therefore, I don't think anybody else should eat pepperoni, then and I want to
Yeah.
veto having ordering any pizza that has any meat based product on it.
No.
Okay, well, let's work this out. Let's see if we
Yeah.
can't compromise.
Yeah.
Because we do have meat eaters.
Right. And so
Um,
with the leadership also came the so that was kind of like the blending and the layering of the cornerstone
hmm,
for mutual aid, which then came into sociocracy, so that we
yep.
could say like, yes, you know what, this is how we help each other, which then led into week three. And I believe week
Yes.
three was Nikki
Okuk.
Okuk. Um, and
Nikki Okuk.
let's
Yeah.
yeah, and let's talk a little bit about her and how she was actually a, I don't want to say a replacement because I feel that's not good. She was a uh
A step in.
yes, thank you.
Hmm.
And she was a amazing speaker because she was doing kind of what we're doing now, except she's several steps ahead.
Yeah.
Um and
And has
what
the benefit
was
of like 10 years worth of experience with like
yeah,
a previous business where she was trying to do like an ethical business, where she was like
yes,
hiring like ex-convicts that had paid their due to society but still had a record and were having trouble finding work.
right?
Well,
Yeah.
we'll give them
And
work and
so
we'll pay them a living wage.
yeah, and so what was the cornerstone? What was the topic of conversation for week three? And um what was your main takeaway from week three?
Right. So going into week three, so week one, mutual aid, the
Yeah.
foundation of like we do this as a community of friends looking out for each other. Week two was, when we start our business, we do it democratically. This is how sociocracy.
Hmm.
Week three was, we're not just one business, because all of us have like a wide array of skills, different array of talents that we're bringing to the table, different abilities,
Hmm.
and so it's just natural, I think, that if we're going to be a community of friends looking out for each other, then starting businesses that we can go to work at, it only makes sense that we form businesses that match and fit our our skill sets that we're bringing to the table. And so we're going to have many multiple businesses. We're going to be a community and network of businesses as well that are all working together to help each other float and survive. Same concept as our mutual aid. It'll be lateral, not hierarchical, and as much as we can make it. And With that in mind, I was very inspired by some of the content that I was seeing out on the wilds of the YouTube. Uh, Works USA raised a little bit of money and was able to create these little animated PSAs type things where they basically go over what is a cooperative, how does it work,
Mm-hmm.
the different kinds of cooperatives, how can you set one up, and I'm just and using little stick figure type animation things, and it's just like this
Yeah.
is exactly what we need.
Yeah.
So I again was manic one of these days, and I thought, why wouldn't the content creator want to be my friend? So I somehow became friends with the content creator, who owned it, or who not owned it, that may be the wrong term, but who helped produce it and
Yeah.
has controls the channel that it was on, and somehow we became friends via Facebook, and because they
Mm-hmm.
were friends with friends of mine that I had discovered through going taking a course on platform cooperativism. Networking works. Schooling is great.
Hey.
And long story short, we started connecting via the Facebook Messenger, and I would start saying, "Hey, I've got this idea. It's called the Voluntary Association for Work and Mutual Aid.
Mm-hmm.
It's about a community of network of worker-directed, community-owned cooperatives." And would you mind? Yeah, we're going to be doing this thing. Yeah, this would have been around August. That I would have been talking with them. We're going to be doing this thing in November. Would you mind speaking? I've been really influenced by your little PSA animations that you've created and put out there. Thank you. And he was all like, "Yeah, I'm all about this," because
That's
that's the
awesome.
kind of people you find in the
That's
cooperative
right.
community. It's built baked into the 7 cooperative principles. We can talk more about those one of these weeks. We can make an entire series where we just focus on different aspects of like the cooperative principles and
Yeah.
explore them, tease them out. I look forward to that. But this is Patrick. Oh shoot, what's his last name? Something Irish. Conlon. Um, is the fella, and he is connected to it was the Works USA. And I forget
Okay.
what it's the Worker Organization something something. It's an acronym. And once again, if my memory does not fail me, we will put their links to their organization in the doodly doo.
Sweet.
Uh, something. And so I started communicating with him, started talking about the vision for VAWMA, started talking about how we hope to and basically, I don't know if I said this to him, but and I may have said this last week, but part of part of the reason why I think it's smart to have multiple businesses running at any given time is that it increases the likelihood of having cash flow. Like every business that I've ever been involved in as an employee or as a manager has had ebbs and flows. They've had high times and they've had low times.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one uh, some very close friends of mine who are also entrepreneurs, and they're I got to tell you, if you want to learn how to do business, you got to watch these people who have been sort of running businesses, multiple businesses, in some ways seemingly running flying by the seat of their pants, just jumping from one pile of capital to another
Yeah.
pile of capital in order to keep the business running, chasing customers, chasing, and it's a real education to see how they do it. And one of the things that I would watch that is when one business was in their slow time, then they would launch another business that would take advantage of whatever would be the high time in that
Mm-hmm.
particular
Mm-hmm.
season. So, for example, we had one business that was active during the winter months when it was cold out,
Right.
so like fall through to late fall through to early spring,
Mm-hmm.
business was hopping. We were the place to go. It was indoors, it was warm, it was something to do to, break up cabin fever.
Yeah.
But as soon as it got warm out, especially in spring, nobody wanted to come to us.
No, of course not.
Zero.
Who wants to be
Exactly.
inside when
So
it's nice and sunny out?
Right. So what did we do? Well, we created another business out on the beach that took advantage of the tourist foot attractions,
Hey,
and made confectionery that we would sell to the tourists. So nobody wanted to be inside our other business. Fine, we'll go to where they are. We went to the beach and we sold them shit that rotted their teeth. It was great, and it really was, because I mean, you'd work half a day and then out in the beach, and then you'd go to spend the rest of the day out at the beach if that was
yeah,
your sort of thing. And we that was just one example. They would do multiple businesses like
sure,
along those sorts of lines, and it would just change from year to year, time to time as required. And but that allowed that tourist business allowed them to. Their other business to be able to maintain cash flow, to be able to pay its
right.
mortgage, to pay its bills when it had no customers, so
Hmm.
that in the fall, when customers started coming back, we could still be there to take their money.
Hmm.
Right. So, in talking, so that was the basic premise behind why we would want to start a network of cooperative businesses in order to help out different people, make sure as many people as possible can continue working during the dormant months. So if like the previous example with the entrepreneurs, when work was slow at the one place, instead of laying people off, we would just hire them at the other business, and if they wanted to be laid off, that's fine. It's your business. You can be laid off, and we'll lay you off, and we'll hire you back in the fall when
Sure.
the customers come back. And I forget what I was talking about. That. Point of the matter is, um, when we got to Patrick, we were talking about this idea of creating these cooperative business networks that would help each other float and survive. And in doing so, Patrick was like, "Yes, I'm all for this. I'm really excited. I've got a presentation." And about a week before, he's like, "I've been called into work and I can't do it, but I've got somebody who can. You really like them."
Nice.
And he introduced me to Nikki O'Cook at that point. Uh, um, and I can't remember if I had seen her. I think I had seen her TED Talk before as well. Before she had been introduced to me through Patrick, just
Hmm.
because she talks about cooperatives, and her TED Talk is amazing.
Yeah.
It's a great introduction to the concept of cooperatives, what they can do, how they can do it, and so I was very excited to have Nikki come and speak with us. She introduced us to Jitsi, which is a great platform for being able
Yes.
to do stuff, and something we may continue to use in the future. I don't know if we can continue to use Streamlabs or to do the same thing. I don't know. That's bridges we can cross if and when we ever
Yeah.
have guests
I mean,
to
that's
come
that's
join
the
us
thing,
on
right?
stream and
Is
such.
that with Streamlab, which is the program we're using now, not a sponsor, send us free stuff. Um, it's one of those we can do a lot of it, and maybe when we get, tips, bits, subscribers, we can use that to up the production quality of
Right?
the streaming content. But until then, I do want to put my 2 cents in and say that
Oh
Nikki
yeah.
was amazing, and
Yes.
not only did she really bring in the topic of cooperatives, but as cliche as this sounds, also the female entrepreneur. It was and I'm gonna call a spade here. Content warning, hot take. She was a female person of color that was a entrepreneur and successfully starting a co-op.
Mhm.
Like, if anything, her presence, her screen presence, the way she handled herself, the way she spoke, that would be my poster for female entrepreneurs, l- ladies of color. This is what you can be.
Yeah. Right?
That's what really stuck to me because when I was doing my own research as far as the co-ops go, there wasn't a lot of female presence in
Yeah.
the, I don't want to call it a hierarchy, but like the board of directors or the
Mhm.
all that kind of fun stuff. And maybe it's because the a lot of the co-ops that were started were all started with bakeries, and we've had this conversation before many a time, because bakeries are your tried, tested, true co-op starting spot. Farm
Yeah.
or bakery. Because those commodities don't necessarily change a lot in dollar value. So you can get, hey, we need X number of ton of flowers or
Yeah.
flour for
Mhm.
our year. Done. We know exactly we're going to be spending that much.
You can build a budget
And
around it.
exactly. And let's face it, other than the Iron Chef or the James Ramsay, how many bakers do you see are men? Not a lot.
Yeah.
You're going to find, again, hot take, and I'm not saying this, you're going to find more of the female representative of co ops in the bakery, baking the the materials that are, exchanged for goods and services. You are going to be seeing more of the female representative in the worker side of the co-op and not necessarily the board of directors side. And so I was really happy to see Nikki in that position of power.
Yeah. And authority. Like the way
Yes.
she would speak with experience. And one of the things I walked away from our conversation with Nikki was to not let my politics bleed into business. As tempted as I am, and as somebody who wears his political opinions on his sleeve,
Mm-hmm.
that's something that I'm really going to have to try and keep an eye out on. Not because I'm you know I'm I'm in the wilderness. There's like no particular party right at the moment that really holds to all of my values, although the NDP is probably the closest.
Well, and
um,
I think that we're gonna put a pin in that,
yeah.
because I think that will be a great conversation to add into next week when we start talking about the voter
Hmm.
apathy versus sociocracy. And I have a whole
Right.
slew of notes. I've already got a script running in my head.
I'm
Um,
looking forward to this.
so our final week, week four,
Hmm.
that was when we started bringing out the patronage structure. That's when we started talking about the
Oh my
PIP
God, week
system.
4. Yeah,
Yeah,
well, we
that was
alluded to the PIP
the,
system.
yes,
Yeah.
that was
So
the, go ahead, take
let
it.
me go into so week 4 was for me personally was a bit of a gong show because like the knowing what was going to be happening on the Monday night, the Tuesday previous, like the I everything that I had planned with regards to how we would divvy up the surplus. A friend of mine who came out of the woodwork, thanks in part to the presentations we were putting on. This had been a friend, like this was the sister of my best friend since I was 16. So somehow or some or another, she started watching the VAWMA streams and said, "Hey, I've
Shout
got some
out.
experience with nonprofits and their boards and their setup and their bylaws and things like this. And one of the things you need to know is that what you're describing, because her and I had been talking at this point,
Yeah.
and one of the things you need to know is that your PIP idea isn't legal." So uh, not that it's bad or evil. It's just it falls outside of the confines of the law of what
Yes.
the CRA expects from a limited liability company, or in this particular specific case, a cooperative company, a
Yeah.
corporation, which is it has to meet certain criteria. It needs to be taxed a certain way, and you can't just change how the CRA taxes you just because you want it to be at the surplus a certain way. I'm
Why
like,
not?
ooh. So she said, it's okay though, because your idea is fundamentally sound. I think we can ultimately achieve what it is that you want to achieve. We just need to use the way that the CRA wants you to do it, so that you can play ball with them and make it happen. So that was just after we finished week 3, getting ready for week 4. That conversation happened. So everything I had planned to do for week 4,
Yeah,
out the window.
I
No
remember
longer
that.
doing that. You know,
Oh,
it's done. VAWMA 1.0 is dead. Long live VAWMA. In comes VAWMA 2.0 with 5 days to spare. We did a lot of research into what patronage is,
hmm,
how it actually works, how it's calculated. Still don't fully understand it, but I'm getting there. And and so, but all that aside, in the preamble to all of that, months previous, again back in August when we were setting
hmm,
up for November, I had reached out to the Democracy at Work people through their contact us link on their website, asking if there was anybody specifically from the All Things Co-op podcast. Hopefully, Kevin,
yes,
because yeah, let's face it, Kevin is awesome. And
yes,
no shade on the other hosts. It's just Kevin has been doing a lot of heavy lifting on the podcast. A lot of times when I watch the All Things Co-op podcast, it's Kevin. You can tell he's put his heart and soul into the thing,
yeah,
and I resonate with him. Like he's one of these people that, uh, as he describes things, as you can see his thinking process, he shows his work, and it makes sense.
hmm,
The math adds up, and turns out he's a lawyer, so that probably explains he's probably like that through training and through vocation, and as well as possibly through personality. Who knows? Uh, and and so when the contact person from Democracy at Work got back to me and said, "Yeah, Kevin is all about it. Here's his email address." I'm not gonna lie. I did squeal a little bit. I
right,
did the whole Wallace and Gromit thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
um, and that was exciting. And so Kevin and I managed to connect a couple of times via Discord. Then we ended up using Jitsi. And so I had asked him to say, basically at the end of this week 4, what we really want to talk about is how not only are we going to be a community of friends that looks out for each other laterally, not hierarchically. Not only are we going to, when we run a business, do it democratically, we're going to run multiple businesses and we're going to run them all democratically. We're all going to share in the surplus that we create. We don't know how yet. We thought we did. Turns out that's not legal. But
okay,
could you could you speak, Kevin? Now I should clarify. At this point, we do know how we're going to split
yes,
the surplus, because there are ways, there are methods, and apparently it's really advantageous to do things using patronage over like dividends and things, because you end up paying much less tax. So you end up
yay,
taking more money home at the end of the day as a
huzzah,
worker. So still learning about how that all works,
same,
but it's exciting. I've learned enough to know that there's an advantage. There's a reason why as a worker you would want to be invested in this.
yeah,
Uh, in a traditional capitalist structure, whether or not your worker gets to go home with more surplus doesn't matter to you, because they don't get to go home with any surplus. You get all the profit if you're a capitalist. But with this cooperative model. And so I asked Kevin if he would speak to the nature of forming these networks and what we can do as a community
yeah,
as we do this. And he gave us a great conversation. I really enjoyed listening to it, and was really thankful that he was able to come out and be a part of all of that with us. So yeah, and to that end, you know, speaking to the idea of what we ended up learning, there as you go along, as the business, conducts itself, you buy supplies, you get the HST back from the supplies you purchase. You keep track of all that. When people buy stuff from you, you keep track of the HST. The government gets it, and
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
calculate it off for each other. It's all very complicated, and I'm not 100% sure I've wrapped my brain entirely around it. But at some point you break even. You make enough money to cover the supplies, you make enough money to cover the hours
Yeah.
that you make for everybody, you make enough money to cover the lights, you make enough money to cover the lease, you make enough money to pay back the loans that you took out so that you could get this whole thing started from the get-go. um, and that's one of the things we should spend an entire episode just exploring the
Yeah.
possibilities of how we can, where we can look for these loans and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Um, and uh, nope, that train left.
Okay. Well, I mean, maybe this will jog it a little bit. We were talking about how uh, he was able to give us a really good conversation, and I feel like it resonated with our core. I want to say our core group that we have active right now for VAWMA, because he was our age. The
Yeah.
one thing I noticed about a lot of the leaders of co-ops, or a lot of the co-ops that were currently established, there are parents,
Yeah.
right? And this might also become a conversation for next week when we start talking about like age brackets and voter apathy and beliefs and all that kind of fun stuff. But he was our age bracket. He was a 35 to 45. And he had the experience behind him. He wanted to make change. Where the other guest speakers, Nikki was great. She held herself with a confidence that was amazing. John Rostakis knows exactly what he's talking about. John McNamara is a professor.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Kevin,
Kevin is, yeah, I know him through the All Things Co-op podcast.
right?
Yeah, and
And that's the thing.
and he was a
He's
lawyer.
Yeah, right? He held himself differently, and I think that's what resonated with me personally, was that he knew, you know what? Yeah, you guys are starting out. You guys are brand new. I remember what it was like to be brand new. He even alluded to it when he was talking about his own podcast and how much he had learned from episode 1 to episode 5. And then whatever season he's in now, he was always learning. And he was understanding that, yeah, we are trying to get our idea out. We are a collective of people that are trying to make the world better than how we found it. We are trying one step at a time to get this idea off the ground, and he appreciated that. He didn't. It's not that the others talked down to us, but he gave me this sense of confidence that you guys are on the right track. You guys are
Yeah.
doing it good. You you're doing your thing. Don't stop. Um, and I think that's what really resonated with me from week 4 was, we got this.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that, and really that one of the things I really appreciated from Kevin, just from our own personal interactions on Discord or by email, was just like how down to earth and personable he certainly was. I mean, they all were, you know,
Yes.
and I think to me that really speaks to the quality of a person that is attracted to the cooperative movement and who naturally rises to the position of like influencer or leader within this community. And these are people who are committed to the ideals of cooperation, of non-hierarchical systems. That's not necessarily a guarantee. Not everybody's an anarchist like I am. Um, but and that's fine. One of the things, the conversations that was borne out with one of our friends of the movement was this idea that uh, shoot, uh, nope, lost that train of thought too. Oh, coffee is beginning to wear off, I'm afraid.
Oh
But I will say that with regards to what that brought us all to, and where we're going to be going, and after the after the last thing in November was finished, I had some minor surgery, some day surgery. I was going into the holiday season.
no.
Uh, like once the VAWMA events was done, I was like, I let out a long breath and realized I was exhausted, and I just basically collapsed. And all the spoons that I had, so to speak, were devoted to making sure I was as present as I could be for my family during the
Yeah.
holiday season, and which took pretty much all my spoons. When we moved into January, I was hoping to get started with this podcast, and maybe even when I was feeling a little bit more ambitious, to continue on having the Monday evening gatherings at the hub, where we would have. Um, uh, Start the bi-weekly thing, where week one mutual aid, week two education, week
Yep.
three mutual aid, week four education and incorporation, and repeat, rinse, repeat. And maybe we'll get around to doing that one of these days, where we will get started on having mutual aid meetings. And when I dream of what our mutual aid meetings can be, mutual aid makes it sound like a soup kitchen, but I'm thinking like it can be like a potluck, with an open mic, where we somebody brings a guitar, somebody brings a cribbage board, and some people are playing cards in the back of the room while someone's serenading us while we're all eating, the vegan hot dogs that we purchased, for dinner. Okay, they don't have to be vegan, but
Yeah. So I mean that's a great segue into where we want to be
Oh
eventually.
yeah.
In your opinion, from week 4 and
Hmm.
now,
Hmm.
where does Vama stand? Um, and how do you feel now than how you felt 6 months ago in August when I challenged you first? Make this happen.
Well, since you challenged me, we've purchased the domain vama.com. It was a placeholder where it says stay tuned to this spot for something, and now we have something. We still need to work on our website. It's still very much just an overglorified placeholder where like it's a splattering of different ideas, where it's a mixture of what I've written, it's a mixture of what Kel has written, who helped and is hosting, helped build the website and has helped hosting it. I think she did a
Nice.
terrific job. It looks
Awesome.
beautiful.
Shout out to Cal.
Content, yeah, shout out to Kel. I don't know that her business in developing websites is active anymore. I think she just takes on individual clients on an individual basis. So,
Oh, cool.
uh, yeah. So if you're looking for a website to be built, especially using WordPress and things like that,
Yeah.
she's your person.
We
Um,
will get her permission first, but then we will definitely put her information in the doobly doo.
Absolutely. And yeah, so we've come a long way with regards to that. We had the 4 day conference spread out over the month of
Yeah.
November every Monday. And next time we do something like this, whether it'll be more advantageous to just like have like a weekend where we do a series of back to back workshops. So, 2 hours here, 2 hours there,
Right.
and then another two, on like a day and an afternoon on a weekend sort of thing. And that's something to look at and learn from. Um, I think I'm excited. You and I were talking about the possibility of exploring utilizing a brick and mortar storefront
Yeah.
in your neighborhood. You just down the street from the local high school.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of foot traffic in that area. Like it's within like it has a lot of good potential. I
It
feel.
does. It
And
does.
maybe one of these podcasts we can go into a little bit of depth where we discuss, using that idea as
Yeah.
like a part of the template for VAWMA, because I think that's where we're going next, and where I'm personally going on this VAWMA journey. And something that's kind of been missing in this whole soupy recipe that I've been building, that is
Mm-hmm.
the VAWMA vision, is like actually having like a business that we can slot into this
Right.
machine, this program that we're creating, and say, does it work?
Right.
And I think this idea for the coffee shop bakery on the corner, by the school there, is a potential winner. I think it might be able to hold water. And that's where I'm excited to go, if for no other reason than as a thought experiment, so that we can, take the concepts that we've got from this VAWMA idea, from all the people that we've been talking with so far,
Mm-hmm.
and actually turned it into a worker directed, community owned, cooperative enterprise that, literally feeds the community, as well as becomes a community hub that can be also a place for helping other employees and other businesses organize. And this is where I got to be careful, about you know uh, where we go as a business, because like part of me thinks we could be that hub of the place where you go to get your fair trade coffee for the same price you get at Timmy's,
Right.
and all our posters around the place, instead of being corporate advertising, like buy our coffee, it'd be like organize your workplace, ask us
Right.
how,
Yeah.
tired of working for pittance while your boss goes to Bermuda for the months of
Yeah. Come work
January,
for
February.
us.
Yeah, don't work for us, work for yourself. Ask
It's
us
true.
how. And and
We can
then
be our
we
own
use
headhunters.
and we just use that to start growing our network of businesses, amongst tradespeople, amongst other people that want coffee on their way to work. You've already proven that you know how to go to work. Why don't you go to work for yourself, doing the exact same thing you're doing, only with you and your friends?
Right. So, leaning into that, if people want to become a member of VAMA, or
Hmm.
even let's scale it back, if people want to become a part of the collective that is VAMA right now, that's still in the very voluntary stages, um, what hypothetically, I don't feel that I have any skills that would be useful, but I want to contribute to this movement. How do I get in touch with you? Or what position would I be able to fulfill? What would bring me fulfillment and a place? What would make me feel like I have a seat on the bus?
As of today, the best place to get connected with us and get involved is probably through our Facebook page on Facebook. We'll provide a link to it in the doodly doo. If you're not on
Absolutely.
Facebook, you can go to www.vawma, that's VAWMA.com. That's again www.vawma.com, VAWMA.com, and you can look on our website there, find out information. Again, it's really just a placeholder at this point, a hope for what we can be in the future. But there should be a link on there where you can send information to us, either at info@vama.com, I believe is the email address that you can use, and that'll just send an email to me. And hopefully that at this point in time, we'll have a trickle of enough people that I'll be able to organize that into something that maybe we can turn into a newsletter. Which brings me to the next shout out there. If anybody out there is watching, wants to be involved, and is asking, what can I do? One practical way you can do is to contact us and say, offer what it is that your skill set is to be part of what's going on. We need someone to help organize writing a newsletter. That's not my strong suit. I have no problem generating content. If you need 500 words from me, you'll get 1,500. But I will write something for you. If you give me a topic, if you ask me a direct question, I will give you a very long-winded answer. And uh, but if it's up to me to create the and organize newsletter, not my strong suit. So if that's you, if that's something you say, hey, that's something I can do without breaking a sweat, come talk to us. Same thing with if you have business ideas, if you have a dream, you have an ideal business that you want to take off the ground, come talk to us. Be part of the conversation. Let's see if what VAWMA is proposing to be, worker directed, community owned. Network of worker-owned businesses or community-owned businesses. Um, uh, if that's something that resonates with you, come talk to us. We'll grow this all together. It'll be fun.
That's awesome. Amazing. And so unless you have anything else to add, Mr. James, um, I think we're just gonna give the shout outs. This is your shameless self promotion, and when you're done, I'll do my shameless self promotion, and we will wish everyone a happy Tuesday.
Absolutely, I would absolutely love to wish everybody a happy Tuesday and invite everybody. If you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button and hit the like button. Write and leave a little bit of a comment if you're watching this post live stream. If you were part of the live stream, hello, welcome. Next time, we would love to see if you have any questions popping up in the chat. Let me just check the chat here real quick, see if we got any questions.
I haven't seen
So,
anything, but that's okay.
no, we'll see. Hopefully, we'll have some people watching us as we do these live as we go along. But for those of us joining us in the future, hello. It was sunny today when it wasn't snowing, and we missed you, but we look forward to having conversations with you in the future. Check us out at www.vama.com. Keep an eye on there for any future developments. And other than that, you can watch any new content we're creating at www.youtube.com/@VAWMA. That's at VAWMA. And that'll bring you to our website, or our channel, I should say, on YouTube.
Awesome. Thank you so much, James. And my name is Kat. I am a transformational life coach as well as an executive coach. I have been working with James as both executive and transformational coach from the beginning of this journey, and I am humbled that he has allowed me to participate in all of this. You can also see my live streams. I have started to transition my transformational life coaching to an online streaming. You can catch me Monday to Friday mornings at 7 a.m. on Twitch for motivation, meditation, and coffee with Kat, where I give you the positive alternative to starting your day opposed to listening to the news, listening to the financials, scrolling socials, and just sitting there saying, ugh, shit sucks. Come hang out with me. We do some breath work, we have some good conversation, and we end the day with positive meditation. Today I will be doing another Diablo and Chill stream where I play Diablo 2 as I climb the ladder, and we have conversations about mental health or anything you want to talk about. And Saturday, you will be able to be a participant in my very first campaign world building workshop on Saturday at noon. I'm going to start live streaming my own campaign building as I start tabletop and life coaching. So you can catch all of those videos at twitch.tv/live with advantage. You can also find a lot of my YouTube content on demand at youtube.com/live underscore with underscore advantage. You can find all of my contact information at my website, www. Guess what? livewithadvantage.com. And where VAWMA's super cool tagline, people are our bottom line. My super cool tagline is in Dungeons and Dragons. When a player uses the help action, they get to roll with advantage. So let me use the help action to help you live with advantage. James, thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to hanging out with you next Tuesday right here on YouTube at 9:30 Eastern, where we're going to have another conversation about VAWMA, where we're going, and how we're going to get there. Perfect. Take care.